Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 31st of July. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. I'm Mark Broom. Thanks for joining us. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. It was a great night for Korea's ruling Saenuri Party as they score an overwhelming victory in Wednesday's by-elections, winning 11 of the 15 National Assembly seats up for grabs and regaining their parliamentary majority. Samsung Electronics' second quarter profits plummet almost 25% on the back of slowing smartphone sales and the strong Korean won. Plus, the United Nations and the US condemn the shelling of a UN school housing civilians in Gaza as Palestinians say Israeli attacks kill more than 100 people on Wednesday. But we begin with the latest results from the largest by-election in Korea's history, where 15 seats for the National Assembly were up for grabs. And with all the votes counted, the ruling party came away very happy indeed, winning 11 seats and regaining its majority in the Assembly. Our Choi Yi-sun starts us off.
It's a victory for the ruling Saenuri Party. With a voter turnout of expected 32.9%, the ruling party took home 11 out of the 15 parliamentary seats up for grabs in Wednesday's by-elections. That allows the party to regain majority at the National Assembly. Despite the main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy's unity with the Minor Justice Party in 3 constituencies in the capital region, only one candidate has defeated his ruling party rival. In the hotly contested race of Seoul's Dongjakbi district, the ruling party's former Seoul mayor candidate Na Kyung-won secured a ticket to parliament after defeating her unified opposition rival No Chan, albeit by a margin of a bit over 1 percentage point. In the Suwon-si district of Gyeonggi-do province, opposition candidate and political big name Son Ha-kyu bowed out to conservative rookie Kim Yong-nam, who garnered nearly 53% of votes. In the Suwon-D district, the opposition's Park Kwang-un, a former journalist, came out the winner against his ruling party rival and chief of staff to former President Lee Myung-bak, Im Tae-hee, with a difference of over 5,000 votes. The ruling party swept the other 3 capital area districts, including Gimpo, where the ruling party's Hong Cheol-ho tasted victory against liberal political veteran Kim Do-kwan. Securing all of the 2 seats in its traditional stronghold of southeastern Gyeongsang region, the ruling party also took all 3 seats from the central Chungcheong area. As for the opposition, it won 3 seats from its political base of southwestern Jeolla region. But the 4th seat in the Suncheon-Gokseong district was claimed by President Park's close aide Lee Jung-hyun, the first time ever by a ruling party candidate. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Now, the ruling party's landslide victory gives its new chairman a mandate to overhaul the party and move ahead with its support for President Park's national reform drive. The main opposition party and its 2 co-leaders in particular are going to face some tough decisions in the coming hours and days as they fail to drum up any significant support. Myung-kil reports.
President Park Geun-hye has been given the green light to get busy running state affairs for the rest of her term. The ruling Saenuri Party's unexpected landslide victory in Wednesday's by-election has given the government a mandate to rebuild itself in the wake of April's ferry disaster and pursue its stated goal of economic revival. The governing party will continue to support President Park in carrying out her national reform drives. The ruling party's new chairman, Kim Moo-sung, is expected to further boost his authority within the party.
The Saenuri Party will reform itself in a humble manner to become a new Saenuri Party and win back people's credibility.
The victory is being seen as an indication of public fatigue, with the opposition's constant push to highlight the government's shortcomings, and it gives the Saenuri Party a chance to give itself a complete overhaul. The crushing defeat means it's back to the drawing board for the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy.
We believe the public reprimanded us for neglecting our duties to take responsibility and undergo reforms.
Despite what many people saw as favorable conditions, the opposition bloc failed to garner any significant voter support. The opposition party had asked voters to pass judgment on the ruling Saenuri Party and the incumbent government for its poor handling of April's ferry disaster and the ensuing investigations. The party's co-leaders Kim Myung-kil and An Chol-soo will face harsh questions for their poor leadership skills and for hand-picking candidates for by-election districts. The ruling Saenuri Party now has 158 seats in the 300-seat National Assembly. The main opposition party has 130 seats. Myung-kil, Arirang News.
Now, in the rest of the day's news, the Korean government will inject about $25 billion into the economy through fiscal measures and policy financing in the latter half of this year. Now, this is part of a $40 billion stimulus package that was announced just last week. Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan also told policymakers on Wednesday that the government will soon introduce measures to boost the service sector, with the goal of creating more jobs and boosting spending. The Korean economy saw quarterly growth of just 0.6% in the second quarter. That's the weakest pace in over 1 year. The US Federal Reserve has decided to continue winding down its bond buying stimulus plan, cutting its monthly asset purchases to $25 billion from $35 billion. This is its sixth consecutive $10 billion cut, and it means the Fed is on course to end its purchase program in October. Now, Fed officials led by Chair Janet Yellen are also stepping up a debate over when to raise the country's interest rates for the first time since 2006, as unemployment falls at a quicker rate and inflation actually picks up to its 2% target. For now, though, interest rates were kept at the near 0% range, this despite the jobless rate falling to a 6-year low of 6.1%. Back here in Korea, and the country's industrial production rate rose to over 2% in June from the previous month. Now, this might sound pretty good, but analysts say it's largely because output was very low in May following April's ferry disaster. Our Na Hyung-kyung reports.
A 2.1% monthly rise for all industries and a 2.9% jump in the mining and manufacturing sector in production for the month of June. Statistics Korea says those were the biggest gains in more than 3 years and nearly 5 years, respectively. But analysts say it's merely because of a base effect.
The June numbers look good because we saw a big drop in May. The increase in domestic shipments of manufacturing goods is very weak. A bigger problem, though, is that overseas shipments are showing negative numbers, meaning exports have not been able to overcome the sluggish economy either. Investment in construction, as well as plants and equipment, are also slowing because of weak domestic demand and unfavorable conditions in the global economy.
The near 3% rise in the mining and manufacturing sector is attributed to increased output in semiconductors and metal processing, driven by demand from both home and abroad. But investment in plants and equipment went down by 1.4% from May, and spending also only edged up by 0.3%. Although it was the first time the overall monthly output has risen since April's ferry disaster, experts say it's too early to say the economy is emerging out of its sluggish trap.
They add it doesn't mean the Korean economy is not improving, but the rate it's picking up is still pretty slow. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's Samsung Electronics has posted some very disappointing second quarter figures on the back of weakening smartphone sales. The company says operating profit in the April to June period was down 24.5% from a year earlier at just under 7.2 trillion won. That's a touch over $7 billion. Samsung's second quarter sales also slumped 8.9% from a year earlier. Analysts say Samsung, which is the world's largest smartphone maker, is facing a slowdown in its mobile business, and its margins are being hampered by the strong Korean won. Now, as I just mentioned, Samsung's strong grip on the smartphone market is starting to loosen quite a bit. And the biggest threat, in fact, comes from Chinese manufacturers who are gaining ground fast. They have some very cheap but increasingly good quality models coming out. Our Hwang Jie has the details.
Samsung is looking black and blue after getting a blow from its Chinese competitors in the smartphone market. Market research firm IDC says the Korean tech giant's share of the global smartphone market plunged to just over 25% in the second quarter of this year. Although it managed to retain the top spot globally, its market share dropped more than 7 percentage points from the previous year. The number of Samsung smartphones shipped also fell almost 4% in the April to June period to 74.3 million units. During that same period, however, the global smartphone market expanded 23% to 295 million units. So which players expanded the handset market? The Chinese. Huawei, China's biggest maker of smartphones, nearly doubled shipments in the second quarter to 20.3 million units, holding down third place in terms of market share with 6.9%. Another Chinese tech firm, Lenovo, also gained market share with 5.4%, taking fourth place. Its shipments climbed almost 40% to 15.8 million units. IDC says the Chinese companies are attracting customers, especially from emerging markets, with lower prices compared to top global rivals like Samsung and Apple. Apple also saw its market share dip by about 1 percentage point to 11.9%. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Now, on to the latest on the probe into the Sewol ferry sinking. Prosecutors continued to drill the driver of the ferry operator's owner for a second straight day on Wednesday. 55-year-old Yang Hue-jung is being questioned over suspicions he helped Yoo Byung-an evade a massive manhunt before the 73-year-old tycoon was found dead last month. Officials believe Yang could hold the key to finding out what happened in the days and hours before Mr. Yoo Byung-an's mysterious death. Prosecutors are questioning him again this morning. Authorities also said DNA testing of 44-year-old Yoo Dae-gyun, who you can see there, the detained eldest son of Yoo Byung-an, shows the body found is definitely that of the billionaire ship owner, ruling out suspicions and conspiracy theories that the body belonged to someone other than Yoo Byung-an. North Korea, fired 4 short-range projectiles on Wednesday, this according to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, only one of the 4 fired in 2 rounds is believed to have landed in the East Sea, and this is North Korea's second test of its kind in under a week. In a related move, the UN Security Council is reportedly going to meet next Tuesday to discuss North Korea's recent missile and projectile launches. Citing government sources, South Korea's Yonhap news agency reports that the council will be briefed by the UN Sanctions Committee. This committee was established in 2006 after North Korea's first nuclear test, and they'll update the council every 90 days. Now, as Seoul and Washington, South Korea and the US generally see eye to eye on North Korea's growing hostility and its missile programs, Washington is calling for better ties between its 2 other allies, South Korea and Japan, for a more united front. Our Connie Kim reports.
Both South Korea and the U.S. are raising concerns over North Korea and the escalation of its military provocations under Kim Jong-un's leadership. South Korean Defense Minister Han Min-gu has pointed to Pyongyang's 3rd nuclear test last year and recent launches of missile and rockets as evidence of that. He also said that the North has developed more sophisticated launch methods. And his Washington counterpart has echoed such concerns.
Their desire for nuclear missiles and nuclear capabilities as we've said over and over again, are highly threatening to the global security environment.
And Locklear pointed to the strained ties between South Korea and Japan as a stumbling block in efforts to put North Korea in check and curb its nuclear weapons development.
They have a common concern, huge common concern with North Korea, and that we encourage them to, both Japan and South Korea, to work together to overcome their political difficulties so that we can work to provide a better security environment in this region.
Locklear emphasized that Seoul and Tokyo need to realize the importance of bilateral and trilateral military-to-military cooperation along with Washington. Historical and territorial disputes between Seoul and Tokyo have dipped bilateral relations to their lowest level in years. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Thursday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark.
Now, there's understandable outrage, international outrage, over the latest shelling of another UN school in Gaza, and this is said to be the biggest refugee camp in the region.
Indeed, Mark, that UN school was sheltering some 3,300 Palestinians, and after Wednesday's assault that struck before daybreak, authorities say at least 17 people were killed and 90 others wounded. It was the 6th UN school to be hit in this conflict, the second with deadly consequences. Devastated, the chief of the UN's main relief agency in Gaza called on the world to take deliberate international political action to end the continuing carnage. At least 16 Palestinians were also killed and more than 200 wounded in an Israeli strike that hit a crowded shopping area in the Shaijalya district of Gaza City. Both attacks came during a 4-hour truce called by the Israeli military, which was rejected by Hamas as meaningless. Wednesday's events now put the death toll above 1,300 for Palestinians and Israel's at 58. Most of the Palestinian deaths have been of civilians, and many of them have been women and children. Over in India, a massive landslide triggered by heavy rains is feared to have trapped up to 200 people in a remote village in Maharashtra state. At least 17 bodies have been recovered from the rubble after part of a mountain gave way on Wednesday, spilling down a mix of trees, rocks, mud, and debris. With 70 homes still buried underneath, the death toll is expected to rise. 9 disaster response teams made up of nearly 400 personnel have been mobilized, but persisting rains and bad roads into the rural village is making rescue efforts challenging, as is the poor communication infrastructure. The region around the village had been greatly deforested, making the area more vulnerable to landslides. The French government has temporarily closed its embassy and evacuated its ambassador to Libya out of the conflict-ridden country. The foreign ministry said 39 other French nationals and 7 Britons were also on the warship that transported the group to Toulon. This as rival militias and government forces continue to be riled in fighting both in the capital of Tripoli and Benghazi. The Korean government, meanwhile, has imposed a travel ban on Libya, the first in 3 years, effective beginning on Monday for 6 months. And U.S. lawmakers at the House of Representatives have passed a resolution that would allow them to sue President Barack Obama for overreaching his authority. Republicans, who make up a majority there, had said the U.S. leader exceeded his authority when he twice delayed an insurance deadline in his health care law. Opponents to the move called the vote a legally groundless one that would cost Americans millions of dollars in taxpayer money. The development comes ahead of midterm elections in November.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 Asian Games in Incheon, as today officially marks 50 days until the big event. But who are some of the big names to follow? Well, first off, it's Marine boy Park Geun-hye who dominated during the national team trials earlier this month and hopes to finish more than 3 gold medals this time as he added the medley events for the first time. Then there's Soyeon-jin rhythmic gymnastics, who has shown great improvement since the 2012 London Olympics, as she hopes to claim the title as the best Asian rhythmic gymnastics after September. And after that, we have Yang Ak-sun, who wowed the world with his Yang 1 technique during the 2012 London Games, as he hopes to do it again this time with his new technique, rightfully titled the Yang 2. And now shifting over to the ongoing search for the South Korean national football team's head coach, as Lee Yong-soo and his technical committee began their 2-day meeting on Wednesday. And according to the head of the technical committee, on the first day of the meeting amongst his committee, their goal was to choose whether they'll pick a Korean coach or a foreign coach. And once they make their decision, they will choose from the list of candidates they have, whether it be a Korean coach or a foreign coach. Now, Lee added that the decision will be on a debate-like process as the committee continues to speed up their process in choosing their next head coach. And more football with Son Heung-min back with his club team. He came back to Korea with Bayer Leverkusen facing off against FC Sewol in their Korea Tour 2014 on Wednesday. And while Son Heung-min didn't score in this match, he did get a shot on goal and did get to play a full 90 minutes in the match. Meanwhile, Bayer Leverkusen gets a first-half goal from Korean Bellamy and a second-half goal from Stefan Kiesling as they shut out FC Seoul 2-0 at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. And now finishing things off with some Wednesday night KBO action, the Nexen Heroes continue their winning ways, beat the Hanwha Eagles 6-2 with the NC Dinos sneaking one past the Kia Tigers 5-4, and the Lotte Giants hang on to beat the Tucson Bears 3-1. Meanwhile, an exciting game between the red-hot LG Twins and the first-place Samsung Lions, so let's take a look at the highlights. Now, right off the bat in the first inning, Lee Jin-young with the bases loaded singles in 2 runs for an early 2-0 lead. But we're not done yet. Lee Byung-kil this time, and there it goes to deep right field, gone a 3-run shot, and it's 5-0. Bottom of the inning, man on second, Park Geun-hye singles home Navarro, and it's 5-1. Now, bottom of the second, LG up 6-1. Lee Ji-young with a clutch 2-run double to left, and it's now 6-3. Not done yet. This time it's Navarro with a 2-run single to center, and it's 6-5. But Chet Tae-in quickly ties this game up with his RBI single, and it's 6-6. Fast forward to the ninth, Samsung up 7-6. It's Sonju in and gone a 2-run shot, and LG has the lead 8-7. But bottom of the inning, bases loaded for Kim Hung-gon, hit by a pitch, and we're tied 8-8. Next play, Chet Tae-in, after a 14-pitch battle, singles home the game winner up the middle as the Samsung Lions win this one in the bottom of the ninth, 9-8. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, today is going to be another sweltering day with highs hovering in the low to mid-30s with a chance of outbreaks of rain in many areas. But this rain will not bring any relief to these steamy conditions. As we can see, heat wave advisory and heat wave warning is still in place in the many regions. And we should have partly to mostly sunny skies, but we have Typhoon Nakuri on the way. It's forecast to bring indirect effect to the southern parts of the peninsula tomorrow and into the weekend. So if you're having a vacation in Jeju and the southern coast, please pay special attention to the future weather update. With that, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The high in Seoul will rise to 33, while Daegu will climb to 34, and Gwangju and Busan should have a daily highs of 32 and 30 respectively. And for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 32 and 33, and Dokdo should see highs of 29, while Mount Keungang reaches at 23. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
that's all we have for now. We'll be back with our next newscast at noon Korea time in about 90 minutes. Until then, goodbye.